issues as the environment, as the health, as any other type of thing. In the Americas is pioneer and is a reference, as we're going to see in this panel. I work in the energetic body and organisms of the atomic energy. Is very well known by the role of the safeguard and the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, but that has a component that is very strong to the resilience of the technical details, and that plane covers different areas that go from the industry, health, environment, natural resources, and of course energy. And there, this is how we analyze there's a growing interest from Latin America and the Caribbean to be able to be ready with an adequate instruction to develop the negotiations that are coming concerning three big factors. The first one is related, is the same, and it's all very clear for us all that is the challenges that we introduce in terms of the energetic volatility and that segment hydric systems that affect some systems as such associated to the evolution and the promise that a technological revolution needs for the small reactors. These are the main capital letters for the acronyms, really, for this word. And we have a third component, is the financial aspect. The financial aspect and the way we deal with this project, because this technological location not only inputs in the technology, but in the way we do business, the way we invest in these nuclear projects changes a bit the main focus for the construction of nuclear weapons. So America, Latin America, and the Caribbean, they're not only showing a growing interest, but also they represent, they really just see a new interest for a special investment. This is a bit where we're going to discuss and get to know in this panel and argue about, if we may. I'm going to hand the floor to Barbara. And is a woman that has been working on with everything and how we've been injecting this Chilean Commission. She works all together with the ministry, the economic ministry, and we have been sharing in different instances this promotion, trying to boost the power of Latin America and Argentina. So, Barbara, I'd love to that you share with us your perception, your considerations concerning the power of nuclear energy for regions, especially talking about Chile. Please, what are the things that you can see, what you consider this level of power? There we go. Thank you. Thank you so much, Facundo. It's wonderful to uh, greet you and thank you so much for this invitation. I would like to start like giving a sort of a context between what is the nuclear capacity in the country, because I think it's not that well known, really. So I imagine that this one here would be even less. We in Chile, we don't have nuclear power central units. We don't have any resection after all, but we do have a very wide experience in terms of energetic energy. Here, the Nuclear Commission has almost like 60 years of existence. We started in the country with two reactors of investigation. One of them is operational, and the other one is right now is stopped. But the one that is operational has been operating in a flawless manner. The S specifications that we, as such, we work with here in the country, they are about areas of health. Um, this is one of the most well-known things. After all, the production of the diagnosis of some diseases such as cancer. This is one of the things that are more relevant for us, and that currently probably we do. But also, we have all the multiple things that are related to industry the environment, the adaptability to species, the climate change, mining, food safety, and other apps that are so wonderful and lovely that I love mentioning, as for example, the cultural heritage preservation. We have a collaboration that works with the Central of Heritage to maintain the fact that this does not get lost with the app of these type of instructions. The country has been constructing these over time with a very important capacity in terms of the management of everything that is the nuclear technology. And this has requested a framework that is legal and is regulatory, and this does enable the use of nuclear technology, as well as the management of radioactive uh, remainings and wastes. And all of this has been used for the apps that are currently used and we use on a daily basis. And this is also a starting point, as a good step if you think about the implementation of the nuclear powers. Concerning this last thing, we have also been part of the country in this other section, meaning that when we talk about the things that have been performed so far in the studies, the last ones in the period 2006-2009, then 2015-2019, these do relate on the evaluation of the national structure that enables the implementation of a nuclear program. A nuclear program that is a project that is complex. It's a difficult project and does consider some aspects that other projects of generation does not have and need to be evaluated. And that is called as that is named after all as the national structure. The infrastructure does not mean that these are wires or irons. These are other things of the legal framework, the regulatory one, the national position, public opinion, treaties, financing, networks, many other things. This shows very relevant information with a very specific guide of 19 subjects that we, in our studies, we've been performing all together with some bodies. We're a member country of energetic efficiency for more than 50 years now, and they have delivered a very important health. And we've been moving on in this fact of raising gaps, after all, gaps in this visibility, like saying what would we request if the country uh, wants to continue and like also analyzing what we need and where we are today. So this is what we need to start knowing what to do, what are the capacities that we have developed in the country, among other similar things. Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you because you have not contradicted me, and that's a wonderful start for this panel. Taking into account what you said, I think it's fantastic the mention that you made to these two working lines that we're proposing as a framework in the region. We've been working with 3 cycles of projects and a program of 10 years for everything that is the capacity that is energetic for the impact of the energetic processes in the use of the soil and the water and the environmental impacts. But during the last year, take into account that we have launched a special line for those countries that have requested it for the development of infrastructure to take a national position concerning the technology of small modular reactors. Those countries that have requested that, they're working on what Barbara has said, these 19 milestones that work on 19 areas that will make these countries go over a strategy to work on a position and working in the matter of changing things. Now we're going to change into English. So for those of you that want to listen to the simultaneous interpreting, please have your earphones ready.
Such a compromise from the very beginning because of her background, a strong background in science. She's a nuclear engineer. She comes from Jamaica, but during the last year, she has shown a strong commitment in order to promote resiliency of the energy systems in the region. And particularly now, she's walking into the direction of to show how nuclear can contribute in this. So please, I would like you to share your views regarding how nuclear can be an alternative for developing economies and small countries, and for example, particularly the countries in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Muchas gracias. Primera, perdóname por favor, todavía.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I'm still learning Spanish. I'm on that level now. So I'm going to speak in English, okay?
Bueno.
Good.
I am truly honored and excited to be invited here to speak among my panelists here. I can't express the excitement that I have, specifically in context of nuclear energy, specifically in Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, of course, the nuclear energy industry is extremely complicated, right? And it's not an industry that exists in an isolated manner, right? You have to have collaboration, you have to have cooperation among many countries in order for the industry to thrive. And with that said, I think there are a lot of opportunities for nuclear energy, specifically in the context of new nuclear technologies like small modular reactors and microreactors to benefit the region specifically. So whether we're talking about energy, and I know we're at an energy conference here to talk about energy, but nuclear science and technology has so many peaceful applications that can boost the socioeconomic status of the region as a whole. So when we're talking about energy, we heard Barbara talk about applications in medicine to produce medical isotopes to treat cancer. In Jamaica, we do also have a nuclear reactor. It's a research reactor called Slowpoke, and we use the reactor to do agricultural studies, right? To make sure that the food that we're consuming as a nation is good for consumption effectively. And there's even been instances where we've utilized a nuclear reactor to solve criminal investigations. There was a particular instance where a lot of sand was stolen from a beach in Jamaica. And they ultimately what they did was that they used a nuclear reactor to identify or narrow down specific sites where that sand could be relocated in Jamaica. And through using the nuclear reactor, they were able to find that stolen sand. So there are many applications of nuclear science and technology in general. And so my view and my vision is that for countries in Latin America and the Caribbean who are interested in energy, in particular, that there's a lot of work that needs to be done from an institutional level, from a regulatory standpoint, from a technical capacity standpoint, from public awareness standpoint and transparency to be able to provide information on the inner workings or how the industry works as a whole. And so I think what that means is the need to take a regionally aligned approach in doing so, right? I mean, Latin America is no stranger to nuclear energy, right? We have countries like Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico who have nuclear reactors and have been operating nuclear power plants and do have that expertise. I think in this sense, there's a lot of that work is isolated, right? And so for us to really take a good look at evaluating what countries in Latin America and the Caribbean could really benefit from these types of new technologies, we need to look at a holistic approach. And then for those countries in Latin America and the Caribbean who are not interested in nuclear, who don't need nuclear energy because they already have other sources that they're looking at for firm base load power, nothing is stopping them from looking at utilizing nuclear science and technology for medicine, for agriculture, for criminal investigation, for forensic science, for space applications. I went to an observatory recently and I went to ALMA. There's a lot of work that is being done in the region in this space already, and I think that there needs to be more awareness and education on that.
Thanks a lot, and I will come back to these ideas. I will switch now to Spanish. Tengo que decir que me aterré en un momento cuando empezaste a hablar en español
I got
porque
scared when you started talking in Spanish because I said, okay, so what do I do now? Muchísimas gracias. What you were saying concerning these regional focus, it was that that event that we did in Buenos Aires concerning the small reactors. You were there, if I'm not mistaken, and that was one of the ideas that got in the participative countries, and it was the first time that we had the participation of the bid of the CAP in that event, and of course we do have an agreement already signed since 2022 when there's an intention of getting together so the region gets ready on that regard. And now I would like to listen to you, Juan Pablo. I know you for a long time now, so I know that I cannot lose time in asking you whatever I want. You're going to talk about whatever you want. He is a reference and he does create a reference in the OPA project and the well level in Northern Argentina. And he has exported the most advanced multi-purpose item, and he is currently involved in everything that is the export of the reaction. I'll get into that in detail. So, Juan Pablo, whenever you want, the floor is yours. Let me tell you that is being said, what Shaline is saying concerning the impact that these nuclear matters have, the development of the infrastructure is something quite important to take into account. Thank you so much, Facundo. I really do appreciate to take part of this panel, to be here with you. I'm also a nuclear engineer. I started, I finished my degree a bit before than Charlene. That was when the nuclear energy was popular. And as soon as I did that, the nuclear energy stopped being popular. And that led me to so many years in having a lack of interest in this nuclear energy. And some years ago, things changed and I had to stop explaining. And from then on, like 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a bit before, I don't know if the word reborn explains that, but it is a really consideration not only in Latin America, but concerning the role that has to be considered in the nuclear energy and the energetic area because we're moving towards there. And let me correct the transaction term because the transition term that is ethical is not what we mean and it's not what we want to say. The term energetic is this transition. This is not the first transition that we've gone through. We started with the use of the wood and the carbono, and then the oil, probably the use of gas after that, and scope changing the sources with the fuel all over the last 200 years without not a lot of complication and problems. So in that sense, this is not the first energetic transition. And then I want to talk about the energetic transitions, the transition of change and the fuel or the energetic efficiency is different for each country. So therefore, we have some countries that are advanced, that are more advanced in the replacement, in the addition of renewable energies, and the use of fossil uh, areas. And there's other countries that are in another corner. Saudi Arabia has not many renewable energies, and though some of them they're delayed. France is quite advanced. France doesn't have these energetic resources and had to renounce to them, has to leave them behind. So thanks to these changes, it's a matter of resource donation, and this is the reason why the different countries are going to have different ways of moving on. Some of them in the development of the changes of the matrices that are electric after all. And these changes, Argentina was a country that was not considered to be a part of this. I mean, we never use carbon or footprint, and this is part of the electric energy. This was part of the electric energy. Now we are more advanced, and now appeared some reserves that are unexpected. So our resource has changed. I believe that this is going to be in in the next decades to come, and it's a matter of adapting. The countries of Latin America in division concerning the role they can cover the nuclear energy and is part of the country. So what has been said so far, Brazil and Argentina, and we have like something faster, really, faster than other countries that have not been part of what's going on. So they have not started there. So first of all, we need to have a regional strategy and to consider how important it is to develop all of this. We have to be very clear on the different countries for different situations, and this would deal naturally with different. This would deal leading to different solutions. The energetic projects they have a long-lasting line, and at the beginning there were 80, maybe even more years, and the long term, and this makes that what can be solved in the policies and the policies of state is part of the industries, and it is clearly fake for the energetic industry. We need other type of policies, and we need as well a look that is at a long term that the market cannot give proof of. Here, and I'm talking about what Facundo said, what's the development of the infrastructure that can be of help in this? We've seen this in Argentina, we've seen this in other countries. Latin America uh, deals with 7.5% of the economy worldwide. This means that each country represents a 1% and is part of the 3% as well. On the rest of the countries, less than that, the worldwide economy. This means that if we want to be in innovation, if we want to be in the innovative policies, we're going to have to choose. Not even the United States can give that the that idea. I mean, how is that going to be done? Not even less Latin America, not less the countries of the individualization. So we're going to have to choose, and we're going to have to choose for the policies of state that are long term. We're going to have to choose this development, what has been placed for these innovative areas, and these technologies that are going to be multiplied. Why? Because there's an investment that does not is not only going to cost something in this discipline, because on this sense, the technology is more than valuable concerning this subject, because this implies like mechanic development of precision, electronic load of high level, and the modeling of the process, and that is very highly demanding. This means that this authority is learned with the nuclear energy, and that can be transferred without any other level of difficulty to these other future situations. And this is part of a technological development, and the company that I work in is part of the technology considering in terms of space, medicine, among others. And the nuclear technology in other places is related to this multiplicative. It can be multiplied. That's the consideration. So a long term in the policy of state, energetic policy as well, the matter of the nuclear things has to be considered not only in matrix that are energetic, in substitution, and in fields that need some emission, and concerning the strategic plan of what's going on.
Muchas gracias, Juan Pablo. Y sí, coincido con ese enfoque.
Thank you, Juan Pablo. I agree with your perspective. And from the technical perspective, the role contributing to the balance of this energy system, the role of nuclear energy because of the low emission that it represents. We are talking about, it is about 9% around the world. It is 1/4 of the generation in the whole world, contributing to the reduction of greenhouse gases effect. So it is an industry multiplying industries, and this has been seen in different countries in the region. And it's interesting to say how it can be complemented in this study. And regarding the data centers and the mining industries that can require some somehow small modular nuclear reactor, and it can be really interesting to have this conversation in Latin America. It's a candidate that it can take advantage of this, and the policies that Juan Pablo mentioned is so good. Now, in this trajectory, I would like Barbara. I would like to know what is the role of the state in the nuclear projects and the role of the international cooperation within this community that cooperates. And the projects, of course, go beyond national borders. Participation or the involving of the state, it's truly fundamental. Beyond the fundamental, it is not viable to think or to implement this nuclear program that it's powerful if it is not pushed forward by the government. These projects are long, and if in Chile, with the infrastructure that we have, we decided, for example, to say we are going to implement this nuclear power plant. I mean, not before 20 years we are going to have this working on. In the case of Polonia, we started in 2006, 2007, and we started with the studies, with pre-feasibility in studies. We didn't continue. They continue. And they are just now renegotiating their contract in order to start building in 2026, 2027 to operate 2023, 2035. So that is the time that is going to take 25 years. It's not because the construction that requires that, but it's all that is required before. And we have nuclear applications and we have a database, we had a regulatory framework that it is for current applications. It's not for a nuclear reactor. And our regulatory framework, there is nothing that prevents us from building a nuclear reactor. In the practice, it wouldn't be able to operate because we cannot authorize the operation. That is a work that we have to do before creating this regulatory framework that enables that the reactor can be built, and we have to give the power to some entity, and then we need the authorization of the regulatory part. So the energy project has their own system, but in the case of a nuclear, we need more authorization, that is nuclear authorization. All of that work takes time, and it has to be taken forward by the government. And besides, everything that involves in the long term is not the decision of one government. As Juan Pablo said, it's a state policy. It has to be in the whole process, in the preparation, the support, and everything that happens later on. So it's a decision that has to be supported. And there is other aspect that needs to be clarified, that is public opinion. This is something that has to be worked on with time. We need a national debate so everyone is in the consensus of how we consider this good for the country. Every country is a different one. We have different needs and resources. So what it is good for one country is not necessarily good for the other one. So it has to be a study for each situation in particular with the real information that can be compared with other technologies. So finally, there is a real consensus that this is a good technology for us. And this is very important because, well, there are several cases in the world where central these reactors have been built and they haven't never been operated with all because of the changes of the policies or the law part. So everything is part of a whole. The whole infrastructure, it has to be enforced and it has to be a decision that has to be pushed forward from the state from the very beginning. And regarding international collaboration, this is also vital among different countries, learning from each other. And also, we don't want to try make tests with this, right? This is an industry that shares a lot of information. So it is something that it is promoted, and we have very close relations with Argentina and others organisms of atomic energy that promotes the support to countries that are just now or for the first time thinking about implementing this nuclear power energy system. And then we share all the information they have collected for years. So this is fundamental, both sides. I think it is really, really good what you're saying. And about this, the organism has a follow what is going on in the world level. And May this year, we have this specific meeting about a stakeholder related to nuclear projects. And particularly, we have this special focus about well, mayors actually talked about this because it's proven that the nuclear, the origin of these projects are coming from the neighborhoods or the local mayors to promote the support of these benefits and the impact that this may have in different areas. So I would ask Juan Pablo to come back to this topic, but first, Charlene, I would like to say, well, I would like you to continue a little bit with the regional focus that you very well said. I know that you have been working with the promotion of the importance of working and building the human resources that are suitable for carrying on with these projects. I know you were not long ago here in Chile in the Congress of the Future, and you have ideas for the region for the next year. Can you share your reflections about the importance of the training in the science, technology, engineering, mathematics areas, and what are the perspectives that do you see coming from for the region?
First, I do want to agree with Barbara. I think that there'll be a lot of work to be done, especially for newcomer countries, right? So from the institute, as I mentioned, from the institution side, from the regulatory side, building technical capacity. So having collaborations and corporations between the private sector, public sector, and civil societies, I think all of it needs to be done simultaneously, right? And we have a very recent example of that being very successful with the United Arab Emirates, right? From the ground up, in 10 years, they were able to build a civil nuclear program. And currently, that one plant, Baraka in Abu Dhabi, is providing 25% of the country's energy. And I think that's a testament to the fact that there is a lot of work to be done on all fronts. And it's not a stepwise process. It's not we complete this, we check the box, we complete this, we check the box. We have to do all these things simultaneously, right? And in terms of, the technical capacity, right? It's one thing to develop, policies and use them as instruments when you don't have the people to execute the tenets of that policy, and you don't have people to enforce the regulations, right? And so I think on a baseline, again, simultaneously all across the board, we need to work on everything. But in terms of technical capacity, I think as a region, there is so much knowledge sharing that we could be doing in terms of not only leveraging information and knowledge and technical expertise within the region, but also with allies overseas, right? So following obtaining my PhD in nuclear engineering, I know that, Jamaica has expressed multiple times, both by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy, Jamaica's interest in assessing the feasibility of deploying a nuclear reactor, specifically SMR, in the country. And that involves, performing techno-economic analysis. How much is it going to cost? What could we use it for? Could we specifically have a small modular reactor plant that is specifically powering or bauxite mining industry, because that contributes a significant portion to our GDP? Do we use the SMR for other industrial applications like desalination? And so there's a question of that techno-economic feasibility analysis that needs to be done regardless of where you're trying to consider to put an SMR. And so I think I came in with the vision that, I was the first Black woman to graduate with a PhD in nuclear engineering from the University of Florida. And this is the United States, right? I would have not had the opportunity to study nuclear engineering if I had stayed in Jamaica. And so even with the fact that Jamaica has a nuclear reactor and has had a nuclear reactor operating on the island since 1984, that does not guarantee that, there is sufficient expertise and institutions that can train the people necessary to be ready for that potential SMR future if the country does ultimately decide to go that way. And so for these initiatives, I mean, I have a view that, you do things in sequences. So what I did in Jamaica is I created the first educational platform to study nuclear engineering, a field that is not offered for study anywhere in the Caribbean. And so it's targeted at both university students, and then a symposium is targeted at, the academic community, professors, university students. And what happens in that scenario is that we bring international experts in the field, in the nuclear industry, who are working at these nuclear power plants from Brazil, South Africa, the UK, Canada, the USA, from notable institutions, from MIT, to come and provide intensive teaching materials to people in Jamaica. And so in doing so, we're not only providing technical education, we're providing awareness, we're providing an introduction to the industry as a whole, not just for the academic community and for the general public, but especially for the youth, right? Because as you mentioned, this industry, to build it from the ground up, is going to take a long time, right? Latin America and the Caribbean might not have the United Arab Emirates money, right? We don't have the same amount we don't have the same access to the capital, and so it will take a long time. And so there's an emphasis on making sure that, yes, there's a public awareness, yes, we're providing education to the public, but we're also empowering the youth and providing education to the youth to do so. And so the model is this, right? So you go to Jamaica, and we also did it in Puerto Rico, and I'm happy to say that we are going to be doing that nuclear engineering boot camp in Chile in January, doing the same model, right? So the model is launch the educational initiative, right? Come to the country or the region to do so. Connect the local institutions with international experts that would come, right? So you're creating a network in doing so. And what we also do is that we provide a blueprint and materials for the entire training of the bootcamp and the symposium, and we hand it over to local institutions such that when, the international experts, they leave after the bootcamp, the folks on the ground can continue that work, but knowing that they have the connection and the support of that network that they would have made from the people who would have provided the information, who would have provided the teaching, who would have provided that information to, whether it's to students or to the general public. And so in a way, you're able to replicate those types of programs. And in doing so, well, we do it in Jamaica. We've done it twice in Jamaica, once in Puerto Rico this year. We're going to be doing it in Chile. And I think the model of providing the information, providing the expertise, providing the blueprint and the roadmap, such that it can be replicated in a way that, if we do it in many other countries within the region, there could be potentially a situation where we gather all the participants who have gone through these types of programs and initiatives, and we talk about ideas. We talk about, okay, well, let's talk specifically. Do we need people working more in nuclear plant design, in non-destructive examination for nuclear applications? So what we're doing is effectively creating an aligned regional approach, as I mentioned, that is cohesive in a way that you're sharing knowledge, you're sharing information, and everyone is learning from each other. And that's ultimately what I see for the region. You see other countries in Eastern Europe, they're taking a regional approach, right, to deploying SMRs. You look at Southeast Asia, they're taking a regional approach. I think that there is a huge, immense opportunity for Latin America to conduct that feasibility, to conduct that evaluation. The answer may be, after we do techno-economic analysis, that SMRs may not be good for this area, or it's just not an option for another country. But I think that instead of trying to debate whether or not it may be a good or a bad idea, we need to do the work to do the analysis. But at the same time, doing the boot camps and these educational training, it doesn't hurt. Even if, and I say to somebody asked me, well, you know what, if you keep doing these boot camps in Jamaica, and then Jamaica eventually decides, we don't want to have an SMR. And my answer to that is, they're still learning nuclear science. They're still learning about nuclear technology. And as I mentioned, so many other applications. Jamaica could build another research reactor that could focus on producing medical isotopes. You're in the same spectrum, in the same industry of knowledge that you can transfer to other industries that could provide socioeconomic benefit to the region. So there is no loss, even if the country decides to not go that way.
I fully agree, and I love this idea we have been building. It was unexpected. Maybe it's your fault, Juan Pablo, about the importance of nuclear building infrastructure and infrastructure development at regional level. And I think it was also important what you mentioned regarding the potential of SMRs in cogeneration. I mean, desalination, hydrogen production, I think it's the pink one, right? And industrial heating as well. So I think it's another element that it was good you bring into the discussion. Juan Pablo, adelante.
I would like to add to what just Charlene said about the topic of developing human resources is a prerequisite, actually, to have nuclear plants. But it's not the only thing we have to do before. And we have to have clarity about the funding. I mean, how do we fund this kind of project? Historically, Latin American projects were funded by the state, and maybe this is the beginning of a new model for the future. It's clear that the role of the state from the planning and regulatory and policies of the government in promotion perspective, it's important. Not necessarily the model today has to be funded completely by the government, but we need to find ways to get close and to make partnership with the private sector. So this is something that we need to work on. The other thing that we need to work in is, well, prior to the development, is to develop nuclear sites. You said, okay, there is a reactor here and nobody had a demonstration against it, but then it started going down after the situation went downward for nuclear reactors and their accidents. But then, actually, when we proposed this in Rio Negro in Argentina, actually ended up with a law forbidding the construction of nuclear centers there. So you need a lot of work and field work. The opinion has turned now in favor of the nuclear energy, but that doesn't mean that any municipality anywhere in the world is going to be open for accepting this nuclear work. So human resources and regulatory aspects, funding, looking for the sites, everything. And everything that is related to the International Organization of Atomic Energy. This is something that we need to work on together in order to develop new successful projects. Thank you. We do not have more time. Just I want to say it's important to guarantee stability, and this is common to all sources of energy generation, and we are working on that already. So thank you everyone for being here, and the last activity of the day. Thank you everyone for your presentations, and we are here available for any question. Thank you, panelists. Please, can you stop for a picture and to this, we actually are going to close down the first week of the Energy Day. So now at 7:45, we invite you to the Verdi restaurant from the hotel here to enjoy a relaxed moment, wine and cheese, supported by Isa Chile and Ina Chile. This is going to start at 7:45, and it's going to last a few hours. So we wait for you tomorrow here in the same place so we can continue learning together.